What's happening, guys? We've got an update from San Diego Comic Convention, this time revolving around Thor 4, which we now know is going to be titled Thor: Love and Thunder, coming November 5th, 2021, directed by Taika Waititi and starring Chris Hemsworth. Now that is really exciting. I absolutely loved what Taika Waititi did with the Thor franchise in Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok is a favourite in the MCU, and for a good reason. And being as Thor has never really had one consistent director through his trilogy, it wasn't a given that Taika Waititi would helm a fourth Thor movie. Heck, it wasn't a given that there'd even be a fourth Thor movie. God, that is hard to say. Fourth Thor movie. Why is it like this? Maybe if I say it in German it'll be easier. Viert Thor Filmen. Viert Thor Filmen. That's even harder. Forget it. So yeah, Taika Waititi and Chris Hemsworth returning. That's gotta be the best thing ever, right? Well, it might just be the worst thing ever. Here's why. I think if there was ever a weak link in Thor's trilogy, it was Jane Foster. She's just not a very interesting character. I think the way her character was dealt with in Thor Ragnarok, as well as her absence in Thor Ragnarok, was really fun and well handled. And it kind of set the franchise in a very different direction. But last night at San Diego Comic-Con, Taika Waititi presented us with Natalie Portman. But this announcement doesn't just mean the return of Jane Foster. This is something a lot bigger than that. Natalie Portman was introduced to the audiences at San Diego Comic-Con as Lady Thor. And I must admit my enthusiasm has now become apprehension. But that doesn't mean that I'm firmly against this. I'm neither for nor against this. Personally, I didn't really enjoy the constant passing of mantles during the all-new, all-different era of Marvel Comics. I'm sorry, but I'm just not very interested in the whole Jane Foster Thor, the whole Riri Williams Iron Man, the whole Miles Morales Spider-Man and all that. They're just not the characters that I go out of my way to see the stories of. And I know that Falcon going on to become Captain America was a product of the all-new, all-different era of Marvel Comics. The fact that we now have Lady Thor kinda looks like we're moving into that all-new, all-different era. Which I guess means that Phase 1, 2, and 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe were the phases that kind of captured the Marvel comics that I know and love the most. And that maybe Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to appeal to a different audience. Now, I guess if ever there was a good time to do this, it's now. The Infinity Saga was an absolutely wonderful story of the Marvel that I know and love. And that has ended. So maybe it is a good time to start passing the torches on to an all-new and all-different era of Marvel. Just please don't do CEO Peter Parker, okay? That would be the only thing that I take personally. It does make me wonder what the dynamic is going to be like in this film. Do you think we might spend the majority of the film with Lady Thor? Maybe this film will be Thor's send-off. I mean, it was greatly implied that he went off with the Guardians of the Galaxy at the end of Avengers Endgame. Perhaps Natalie Portman is the new Thor, and Thor goes off to join the Guardians. That would certainly excite me a lot to see Thor join the Guardians of the Galaxy. And perhaps Lady Thor can bring us some really good stories. I will admit, while I am apprehensive about the idea of them moving in a direction that's more similar to all-new, all-different Marvel, I'm more apprehensive because of the fact that I just think Jane Foster has been a weak link so far. I've seen this happen a number of times in TV and film, where there's a character that the writing wants us to care about, but we don't, so they then give them a much bigger story, and it rarely works. But I do have faith in Marvel Studios, Taika Waititi, Kevin Feige, that they'll pull this off, because, to be honest, how often have they ever not pulled something like this off? But Thor: Love and Thunder is just one of many projects Marvel Studios announced at San Diego Comic-Con. Let's run through the films first. We have The Eternals, starring Don Lee and Angelina Jolie. I don't really know much about The Eternals, so I don't really have much to really get excited about. It's not one I'm massively interested in, but hey, as long as it's a good movie, right? I wasn't really looking forward to seeing Ant-Man when it was first announced, but then, hey, I saw the film and I loved it. Next up is Black Widow, which I'm not so sure about personally. I have every faith that Black Widow can hold her own film now, it's just, I thought Avengers Endgame was kind of an ideal swan song for not just the character of Black Widow, but Scarlett Johansson in this role. And that's not me complaining like, I don't want any more of that, it's just I thought Endgame was the perfect send-off for her and Robert Downey Jr. Chris Evans too. But I think there's going to be some big plot reason as to why we're getting this film. I think they're going to be setting up something big within this one. There'll be something big in there to justify its own existence. It won't just be like, you know, Budapest. There's going to be something to really really. It's not just going to be an answer to a few questions. It's going to have relevance. So I do look forward to where they're kind of going with that. I'm just uneasy about kind of digging up a flashback story. Positives and negatives, you know, you gotta keep it balanced. So next up is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I know nothing about Shang-Chi, but I believe he's like the master of Kung Fu or something. So that ought to be good, like a Kung Fu movie. The bit that really sparks my interest, though, is The Legend of the Ten Rings. And it has confirmed that this film will star Tony Leung as the Mandarin. Hooray! We finally get to see the real Mandarin. Although I won't lie, I'm a bit bummed out that it's not Ben Kingsley. And I know that's really, really strange, okay? Like, I get it. Like, the real Mandarin probably is not exact to Trevor Slattery. But hear me out, Trevor told Tony that they gave him plastic surgery. So maybe they did want to make him look exactly like the real Mandarin, and maybe he was kind of exact, so maybe it could be like a double role sort of a thing. But then again, Ben Kingsley isn't really the right nationality for the real Mandarin. So what we'll be getting with Tony Leung will be more authentic. I really like the terrorist angle they were going for, where the Mandarin's not really a Chinese guy or anything like that. He's just a guy that adopts a lot of Chinese mythology and everything into all of his attacks and everything that he does. And Ben Kingsley's performance in that first half of Iron Man 3 was so chilling. And it is a shame we'll never really get to see Iron Man face the Mandarin. But I am absolutely thrilled with this news, because it means that short, All Hail the King, is actually going somewhere. There was a real Mandarin. It means that one shot is more than just an apology for the Mandarin twist in Iron Man 3. So I'm really thrilled about that. I know nothing about Shang-Chi, but I'm really looking forward to his movie. Next up is probably the one I'm looking forward to most, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Spoilers for Far From Home. I know a lot of people were expecting that film to set up the multiverse, and it didn't. But don't be disappointed for too long, because if the title for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is anything to go by, there is a multiverse. And from the sounds of things, this is going to be Marvel's first horror film. How exciting is that? I really love the character of Doctor Strange. He came into the Infinity Saga so late in the stage, but he really was a show stealer in Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. And I've been really looking forward to seeing him take on the next task of his own. Next up is Black Panther 2. Nothing is really known about that, but Black Panther really has been a show stealer in the Infinity Saga, so I'm looking forward to seeing what his next adventure is. And I really hope that Ryan Coogler returns to direct. Next up is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Nothing really is known about that. We know that James Gunn has been reinstated as director, so I'm thrilled about that. Yeah, those jokes on his Twitter were really, really stupid and puerile for a grown adult, but the past is not today, my friends, and James Gunn really is the only man for the job. I'm really hoping that Thor tags along for this one. From the way James Gunn has described things in the past, it does sound like this is certainly going to be the finale to the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. So, while I never really looked forward to the Guardians of the Galaxy films the most out of Marvel's slate, I think this is going to be a very meaningful, heartful experience, like they all have been, but this one is just going to take it to that new level. Then, of course, as talked about earlier, Thor, Love and Thunder. And then there's Captain Marvel 2. We know nothing about that. I haven't even seen Captain Marvel 1. It doesn't really have my interest that much. She's an all-powerful super being, and it's not been much to really tell us about her character in the material from the first one. And there really wasn't in Avengers Endgame either, so I hope they elevate her character to something a little more interesting than just her powers. But then there's the real surprise. Blade. Marvel Studios' own Blade, starring Mahershala Ali. Sorry, I'm probably butchering that name. I won't lie, I'm a little bit bummed out at the fact that they've rebooted this as opposed to bringing back Wesley Snipes, but it's something new, I guess, and it's just good to have Blade back. I guess maybe the past is where certain things do belong, and we should just enjoy them for what they are. And finally, the one I'm probably most excited about is the Fantastic Four. This will be Marvel Studios' very first time handling a former Fox property, and I can't wait to see what they do with it. I remember watching Marvel Studios' Spider-Man Homecoming in theaters for the very first time, and how it felt like such a breath of fresh air after the Sony versions. I'm hoping we're going to get that same feeling recaptured with the Fantastic Four by Marvel Studios. So it certainly sounds like the Marvel Universe is going full speed ahead with brand new characters, and is really gaining a new identity for itself, while characters that we're familiar with are getting reimaginings through other alter egos. So I guess I'm excited about this going forward. I'm obviously going to be a bit apprehensive apprehensive about everything because I'm very, very attached to the Marvel that I know and love. Those particular versions of the characters, but I guess the time really is right for Lady Thor, for Falcon to be Captain America and everything. Speaking of which, over to the Marvel Cinematic Universe TV series on Disney+. So there's WandaVision on Disney+, which I'm really excited about because I really, really love the characters of the Vision and Wanda Maximoff, and I'm really interested to see what kind of Avengers they'll be taking on. Although I am apprehensive of how they're going to reintroduce us to Vision after what happened to him in Avengers Infinity War. I mean, how's that working? How are they going to get his little stone back? Isn't it a really, really bad idea to resurrect him just from a safety standpoint? Well, nobody knows yet. Then there's the Loki TV series, which I'm guessing will take place in the alternative timeline. Hawkeye's finally going to get the love he deserves with his own TV series. And then there's the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I think is the show I'm looking forward to the most. But they're surely not sticking with that title. He's not the Falcon anymore. He's Captain America. And the Winter Soldier was Bucky's terrorist name. Should it not just be called Captain America and Bucky? Perhaps Captain America and the White Wolf? Odd one, that. Odd one. And then there's the animated series called What If, where literally anything could happen. Which I think would be a really good excuse to bring back certain actors in their roles. I mean, as I said earlier, I think Avengers Endgame was the perfect swan song for Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., and Scarlett Johansson. But if they want them to reprise their roles in voice form, this is the place to do it. So that's that. That's the San Diego Comic Convention Marvel Cinematic Universe roster. That's all the information we have now on Phase 4 of Marvel. There's no word on a Spider-Man sequel yet. Now, I'm really hoping that's because they're going to announce it with Sony. Because you can't end Spider-Man Far From Home like that, and then make us wait that long for a sequel. But that does give me a little bit of dread. Maybe it's not on the roster, because maybe Sony haven't told Marvel yet that they can even make their Spider-Man 3. As we know, in the contract for Spider-Man's Marvel and Sony agreement, Marvel Studios need to bring in $1 billion from Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, right now, its worldwide total lifetime gross box office is $874,552,591. So, let's just all go see the film again. Either that or I think Uncle Walt needs to buy Sony. Well, that about wraps up the Marvel Cinematic Universe news at San Diego Comic Convention. What do you guys think? Comment below and discuss, and as always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button below, and in the description below are links to the Patreon and the Discord. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'm Channel Pup. I'll think of a snappy catchphrase next time.